Hello, and welcome to Informatically Speaking, a Greater Delaware Valley ANIA podcast designed to promote knowledge sharing in the field of nursing informatics, locally, nationally, and globally within our unique industry. At GDV ANIA, we are committed to providing opportunities for professional development with the goal of advancing nursing informatics practice. I'm your host, Constance McLaughlin. Welcome back to the third installment of our series focused on self-care and our guest, Julie Allyson of Julie Allyson Coaching and Retreats. Thanks again for coming back, Julie. We're excited. This is session number 3.
I'm thrilled to be here. Yes.
Excellent. So since this is our final session with you, would be great if you could give us a recap of the last 2 sessions, just quick on reset and reimagine before we get started on reemerge.
Absolutely. So I'll start by just giving a quick recap about where the You Decide framework came from. So as I started my coaching practice, I found myself saying You Decide all the time to my clients, to myself, in, workshops, and really in so many conversations, because the power, and I call myself a decision strategist. I don't know if I've talked about that. That's my new thing. I've come to terms with the fact that that's what I am. I'm a decision strategist. And what I do and how I empower people, my clients, and hopefully you, is by helping you understand the immense power that you have within you to decide. And that your life right now is the result of a series of decisions that you've made up until this point. So just take a moment and think about that for a second. That the power of the decision, right? Your life right now, take a look at it. Is it good? Is it bad? Do you love it? Do you have things you want to change? But that your current state is based on those decisions you've made up to this point. And then your future, your next chapter, this next beautiful chapter of your life is going to be created by a series of decisions that you make from now on. Mind-blowing, right? It's that basic and that simple. So that's where the You Decide came from. Is I just kept saying it. I embody that. It's a superpower to really harness that. The reset phase is, who am I at this point in my life? Taking that step back, understanding what are my core values, what's important to me, what are my priorities, what are my limiting beliefs, what are the narratives that I'm telling myself that just simply aren't true. And really that reset is just looking at all the things and getting crystal clear on current state, who am I, and what is important to me, what do I want in my life. And then the reimagine piece is, now that I know all of that, what do I want for my next chapter? What do I want it to look like? You are the one that should be and can be deciding what that next chapter looks like. You're the one with the pen. You're the one with the keyboard. You should be writing that. And so getting crystal clear on what each core value that you have, what does that look like for you for your next chapter? And we talked about in the last podcast about using all of your senses to really curate what that vision is, understanding that your subconscious cannot decipher between that vision, that imagination, and what reality is. And there's science behind that. So leveraging the power of all of those things to really get clear on, what does this next chapter look like? And we talked, I encourage you to go listen to the second one also, because there's just so much more in there that I'm not going to go into here, but I encourage you to go listen to it. And so now that you have done the reset and you've done the reimagine piece, the next piece is reemerge. Now that you've done all this work, now what? This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where you're going to take action. This is where you're going to get a little bit pragmatic and this is less of the woo-woo and more of the go get them, right? And, one of the things that people say about my coaching is I'm a big hug and also then a smack in the tush to get moving, right? That's the two sides of me. So this is the smack in the tush to get moving. So we'll talk about reemerge. So now that you've got all your plan, okay, this is what I want. I know what I desire. I've done all this work. What is your plan? How are you going to make this happen? And so we want to shift from the like kind of visual to the making it happen. Um, so basically you're going to look at your vision and say, all right, if these are the things that I desire, literally, what do I need to do to get there? And so there's several different things you want to look at. One of them is your habits. And if you've read the Atomic Habits, which is such a phenomenal book, it's like a staple for I believe for behavior change. Is what are the things that you do day in and day out that you might need to, and you're going to love this to all my informatics people. What are you going to start? What are you going to stop? And what are you going to continue? Right?
I
It's
love it.
that's such a wonderful framework to think about so many things, workflows certainly, but also your life workflows. So if let's use an example. So I'm going to use this from the perspective of start, stop, continue, and also um, mitigation plans, right? So we want to think about what are the things in your life that could potentially block you from taking the action to realize that vision for your life. So a very basic example is going to be, I talked in the second podcast about the 5K, right? One of my, your one imaginary person's core value is health. And one under health is they want to run a 5K. That's their goal. So they look at their life and they say, okay, if this is something I really want to do, and I can envision myself crossing the finish line, and I know how I'm going to feel, and I'm going to be high-fiving all these people, and now I need to put my sneakers on and run. Like that's the action, right? What could potentially be a barrier to my success here? What do I need to start, stop, and continue? Okay, I look at my life and I'm like, okay, I joined a running club. That's one of my actions. I joined a running club and we have our long run on Saturdays. Okay, great. However, every other Friday, my team does happy hour. Okay, what am I gonna do about this? Am I gonna get up for a long run at 7 a.m. if I'm out? Drinking or not, doesn't matter. But if I'm out until 10:30 at night, am I gonna be at my best at 7 a.m. on Saturday to show up for my long run? Okay, I need to think about this. What am I gonna do? I need my mitigation plan. So my choices are I'm not gonna go. I'm gonna say, guys, you know what? I'm that is not aligned to my goals right now. I'm gonna be gone for 3 months from happy hour. Am I going to commit to going home at 8 o'clock? Or am I going to ask the team if we can move it to Thursdays for the next 3 months? This is how I want you to approach your actions, your action plans. What your actions need to support and align to your core values. And so think about it that way. If there's something that could potentially ruin this success or this progress, take a look at it and say, what am I going to do about this? Does that help, Constance? Is that like
That
resonating?
that does make sense. Yeah, just, kind of I guess when you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, I've got to break things down to figure out how you're going to get there,
Mhm.
and then start working on it. Right. I mean, of course, you can kind of overlap things, right? If you start working on something, you need to make adjustments, of course,
Right.
and figure out then how you're going to go forward and achieve your goals.
Absolutely. Yep. And some of the other things that could be that could derail you that I would love for you to think about is, you know, what potentially what self-doubt could potentially be blocking you from accomplishing these things. So let's take the example of I talked in the previous podcast about my journey to the last corporate position that I had. It was on my vision board. I did all the things. I did the reset, reimagine. This is what I wanted to do. So one of the things I had to think about is, well, if I'm afraid, and maybe afraid is not the right word, but if I have doubt that I am qualified for the position, right? I'm not going to apply for it. So therefore, I'm almost like sabotaging myself because of
Right.
self-doubt. So and awareness is key. I talked about that in the last two podcasts, is if you're aware that there's this self-doubt that's bubbling up for you, and you're aware of it, you can then deal with it. So if I'm like, okay, Julie, why aren't you applying for that job? Like that is the next step for you. Okay, well, well, I haven't led a team that large, or well, I don't have the advanced degree, even though it's not a requirement of the job, or what have you. Write it down and look at it and go, okay, am I telling myself stories? Am I telling myself stories? Is this false? Is this just me being a little bit afraid to go to the next? Right. But having that dialogue with yourself is so powerful, because then you could say, yeah, this is that. None of these things are true. These are barriers that I'm putting up unnecessarily. And if you can move that out of the way, it's so liberating. Because then you're like, no, I can do this. I am going to do that. I've committed to myself to do this. I am going to do things that I'm fearful of. Our bodies, our minds, our psyche is wired to keep us safe. So if we feel afraid of something, if we have fear around something, that's natural. Our bodies are and our minds are geared to do that intentionally. And our awareness of it allows us to get through that.
And I think too, there's a certain amount of trust that you have to have in yourself as
Mhm.
well. Because as we're talking and you're talking about your example, and I'm thinking to myself, a lot of people get into the a lot of people maybe aren't happy in their jobs,
Mhm.
right? So I started and I hear this a lot just in different places, and people get negative about it and things like that, and they, oh, I'm not, and it kind of fits into what you're talking about. I'm not qualified for that or whatever, but I I want to know your thoughts on someone's not happy in their job and they're
Mhm.
thinking about they're out looking for other jobs and they're not finding anything and it's feeling heavy. It's happened to all of us at one point in our lives. And you keep looking and you're not finding anything and you're really struggling at work. Um, my first thought about that is to use this to reset, figure out what it is that you're not happy with, understand where you are in the process, personal and professional, figure out all of the things, right?
Yes.
Before you start putting in all those job applications.
Yes.
Figure
Yes.
out where you are and what you want to do, and then you can move forward and say, you know what? These requirements, maybe I right now don't think that I'm required that I'm what's the word?
Qualified?
Qualified for that, but I am,
Right.
because I know that I've done all of this work. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that applies too.
Yes. So I love that. And when we think about really getting crystal clear on what you want that next career move to be, it's not, to your point, it shouldn't be a matter of, oh, I'm going to put in a bunch of applications to all these jobs. It really needs to start with, how do I want to feel in my next career move? Who do I want to be surrounded by? What do I want this to look like? Is it remote? Is it in office? Is it hybrid? What do I want my commute to look like? What do I want to be wearing? What kind do I want to be opening spreadsheets, or do I want to be leading conversations? Like, get really curious. I love that word. So curious about what you want in that next career move, and create a list of non-negotiables.
Oh, I like that.
Yes. Yes. Because before you go and apply and look for the jobs, get your list of non-negotiables. Because if that particular job description comes up or whatever, and don't put 20 non-negotiables, because that would make it a little difficult. But things that are aligned to your core values, like, no, it's not going to work for me to go into an office 5 days a week, because I know that I'll burn out, and I know that it's unhealthy. And for me, whatever those things are, that's a non-negotiable. The job is full-time in the office. You don't even look at it. It's almost like you're acting as your own reticular activating system. You've got your non-negotiables. Now you're able to filter the things in that meet those and not even bother with the things that don't. Yeah.
Yeah, that it's so true. You just preaching the truth, my friend. So how do we keep a resilience there? How do we if we are self-reflecting, we're doing all of this a lot of internally, we're having conversations with ourselves. You know, how do we I think a lot of people too aren't sure how to utilize a mentor. They want to have a mentor, but they're not exactly sure how to use one. Um, what do you say about that? I mean, I feel that, helping your adoption and things and helping to gain that feedback on how people are perceiving you is the best way to do that is to have a mentor, or, even just, a friend saying, what did you think I was doing here? But I think mentorship and coaching and that community support is really important too.
Well, it is. And, there, when you talk about the resilience and like you're going through all of this, you're doing the reset, you're doing the reimagine, and things don't feel like they're moving as quickly as you'd like them to. Oh boy, is patience a tough one, right? Patience is tough.
It is.
And one of the there are a couple of things that I like to talk about when my clients are struggling in that, and they're like, Julie, I've been doing all the things and nothing's happening. Well, if we talk about law of attraction and manifestation, which we talked a lot about in the second episode, um, when you are crystal clear and you are manifesting what that future looks like, and you're starting to take those actions, it whatever is meant for you is there. You just haven't caught up to it yet. Which in my mind is something that I like to envision, right? Like whatever that thing is, it's there on my path, and I'm working toward. I'm getting there. It's not that it's not there, just I'm not there yet. And so that's one thing that helps with that patience piece. But there's a couple other things. When you start to have that self-doubt, so you need to really be tapping into the resilience. I encourage, and I do this for myself, is and my clients, to make a list of receipts. So what does that mean? A receipt is all the amazing things you've done in your life and write them down. Because when we go into that mode of self-doubt and like, why am I doing this? And this isn't going to work out. I'm not good enough. Look at this. This is, whatever. You pull out that list of receipts and you look at them and you're like, this is objective proof that I can do all the things. I've done so many things. I'm incredible. Because when we're in a space of self-doubt in our mind, we're not usually capable of pulling those receipts out, that proof that we're amazing, right? So to
That's
have
true.
it written down or on our notes in our phone or whatever, it's a really powerful tool to kind of put us back in a place of positivity and gain, right? Like this is we've done amazing things. We're going to continue. So I encourage you to, and I would encourage you to do that like today. Like write down your list of receipts of all the amazing things that you've done in your life, because that's just helpful for anything, right? It's validation. We forget. We truly do forget the amazing things we've done. And then that brings me to another really cool concept from one of the books that I read, which is The Gap and the Gain. I don't know if anybody's read that book, but it's really great. I'll have to tell you, I think it's Dan Sullivan that wrote it. But the concept there is we live in this gap mentality because we always have our goals and our plan for the future,
Right.
right? So if we think about where we stand physically right this moment, and then all the way to the right is where our goal is in whatever in our life. Well, when we take 10 steps towards that goal is going to go out another 10 steps. We're never going to be there, right? Because this life is a journey. And especially, healthcare professionals, we are driven people and we're here because of that. So we're always going to have personal and professional next, the next step, the next step, the next step. So if we live in this gap mentality of, oh, I'm not there yet, we're always going to be in that mentality of, I'm not doing enough. I didn't do enough. I didn't get there. Well, no, of course you didn't get there because the line's always moving, and that's beautiful. So let's instead live in the gain from where we started to where we are, right? That's the money right there is let's celebrate these incredible things that we've done to get us to where we are now. That increases that feeling of empowerment and that feeling of I know I can do this and that feeling of yes I am going to continue to go to work on my goals and work on what's next for me. So I encourage you to think about that too. Get your receipts and then understand that if you live in the gap you're always going to be in the gap because the line's always moving.
You've said so many things in there. My mind is going in circles. So I recently, believe it or not, I just recently did this. I wrote everything down because I was feeling like I needed to just kind of regroup.
Mhm.
And once I did that, and I really was putting myself through the paces and making myself think about all of this, and I thought, and I looked back on my document and I said, holy cow, are you kidding me? I didn't
Right.
realize, but this is the kind of stuff that, and this is the next point that you were making about the gap, right? I truly feel, and this is just the world according to Constance, is that when you have that and you're in that gap and you can see that, or maybe you don't see it, but you know that it's in line, that next phase is up there, that just means that you have more work to do. It's just not ready to come to you yet, right?
Right.
So you just have more work to do. So patience is incredibly difficult. I am
Mhm.
the most impatient person in the world. Um, but I'm learning as I age to be more patient with myself and with others and to really think about all of the situation that's going on
Mhm.
and then start making decisions or a judgment about what I need to do to move forward. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it's just that, again, step back. Maybe you got to reset again, right? Maybe you need to
Right.
go back to reset and
Yes.
reimagine if it's not coming to you
Right.
what can you do? Like you can't be so entitled to think that everything's just going to drop in your lap when you want it to. It's going to happen when it happens.
Yes. And
Ready
to your
to
point
receive
there,
it.
like going back to the reset and reimagine, this is not a linear process. Oh, by the
Right.
way, it is not linear. This is a very fluid. And you might have like one piece of the vision that you had. Like let's say there's 10 elements to your vision. One of those elements, you might need to go and reset on that because you start to proceed and you're like, this does not feel right. This is not what I expected. This is not go back. Take that one little piece and go back. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater or whatever they say, right? Just take that one piece and go, okay, let me reset here. Is this really what's most important to me? Is it? I thought it was, but maybe it's not. And that's okay. And it's beautiful that you're questioning it because you're not meant to just proceed blindly. No, feel it, feel the things, tweak it, change it, do what you have to do. This is your path. This is your journey. Um, I want to give you a really like tactical thing that I would encourage you to do too when you get to this reemerge phase. And that is to do a week in review. So once you put your plan together and your actions and you're like, okay, these are the things that I'm going to do and all the things. And I do this on Sunday mornings. So, but pick whenever. I sit down and I say, okay, let me reflect on my week. What did I accomplish? What were the great things that happened? What things were not so great? And those are my lessons learned, right? I'm going to look at those things that weren't so great and I'm going to go, okay, what would I do differently next time? And think about it. Um, I look at what I'm grateful for that happened the previous week. And like, did I stay on track with certain things that I wanted to do? I'll look at the previous week and say, did I do the things I said I was going to do? And if not, I don't, berate myself. If I didn't do it, I get curious and I say, okay, why not? Why didn't I do that? Is it because, again, like I said, it maybe that thing is not as important as I thought it was? If I'm not doing it, there's got to be a reason why, right? Is it just not as important? Do I need to dig into that a little bit? Is it because I didn't show up for myself? And if that's the reason, get curious. Why didn't I show up for myself? Why didn't I do X, Y, and Z when I said I was going to? Is it because I did not stick to my non-negotiables? Is it because I did not keep the boundaries that I've created in certain areas of my life? So I didn't have the time for it. Like that inquiry and that curiosity is like so important. So really reflect on that week. And then it's okay, so what is next week going to look like? Given all of this reflection I did, what's up for next week? What are the things that I'm going to make sure that are non-negotiables? What are the things that I want to make sure that I do differently from last week? And that is kind of like your checkpoint, your weekly checkpoint. Because if we don't like give ourselves that weekly checkpoint, accountability, celebration, gratitude, all the things, then we could derail. Even if we go off the rail 5 millimeters every week, that eventually you're going to be way off track from where you want it to be.
Sure.
And it's going to be harder to get back. So that weekly, and again, it gives you that ability to celebrate too, which is awesome. Celebrate your wins. And so it's a multifaceted um, act, I feel like, to do the week in review.
I agree. And as you're talking, we actually have a tool at work,
Mm,
that we use, but that's more on a professional level, and not always. I mean, you can certainly put personal things in there, but it's more for professional professional growth, and really just to reflect on the week that you just had, and then just like you said, what's up, what's your most what's your highest priority, right? I
mhm.
think we talked about priorities and priority
Yes, yes,
before, and I think that's hilarious because I never thought about it that way. But you're absolutely right. Priority is one thing. So anyway, so the tool really highlights, what are you going to focus on next week? What is
yes,
your highest priority? But I guess I never really thought about it from a personal standpoint. I do that
yes,
at work every single week, but I never thought about doing that. So I have to go through my reset. I need to
yes,
go back and I need to
yes.
reset again and start thinking about all of that. So
Well, right. And imagine the beauty of every single Sunday or every single week celebrating your small and big wins. Like celebrating that. Like this week, legit, I'm celebrating that I got up at 4:15, 2 days to get to the gym because every week, every day this week I had early morning coaching calls and networking stuff. I'm celebrating that. I wanted to do it 5 days, but I'm celebrating that I did it too, right? And by celebrating that and reflecting on how great I felt when I did that, that is going to be motivation for me for next week. Like I'm going to reflect and say, Julie, remember how amazing you felt? Like you had so much done by 6:45 in the morning and blah blah. Like it's such a beautiful thing to celebrate.
it is. And I think we forget to
We do,
celebrate
because we
ourselves.
expect ourselves to always be doing amazing things every moment of every day.
And we do.
I know we
But
do. And
you have to take the time to reflect on that and say,
yeah,
look at all I've done.
yes.
Absolutely.
Um,
So, yeah, I guess just to sum it up, Julie, this has been great just to talk with you, as always, but having 3 sessions with you, and I know the listeners are taking so much away from this. How do you, how do you want to end this? How do we encourage folks? How are we moving forward, and using the You Decide framework?
yes.
Go for it.
So I want to say one thing before I sum it up, but I do want to talk just you mentioned it, but about the importance of having a mentor,
Mm,
having a coach, having a sponsor, and those are three different things. So, and being very clear about it. So if you don't have a mentor, I encourage you to certainly find one because that's like invaluable. And a mentor is someone that, is going to be there to help you along your journey, personal, professional, whatever. If you feel like you need more of a guide, someone that is going to literally be on a particular journey with you, a coach is a beautiful option. And I also encourage you to have a sponsor. So what's the difference? Like a sponsor is someone who literally is like your cheerleader, especially from a professional perspective, where they're going to be the one that's looking for, oh, Julie needs to be in this room. Oh my God, that position. I'm going to talk to that person because that position would be amazing for you. Oh, there's a new thing going on that. So, and you can literally have a mentor who is also your sponsor, but it's usually two different people. And I encourage you to just investigate, think about that, having a mentor and having a sponsor and what that can look like for you and your career. So, because that was big for me in my career. I always had a mentor, and I usually had like two sponsors that, like, even if I'm not in the room, they're thinking about, okay, where could Julie fit in here? And that was just amazing for my career. So I
That
encourage
is
that.
so interesting, Julie. I never thought about the sponsor. That's a new concept for me. Um, so that's pretty cool. And I find that most of, and this might be different for everybody, I'm sure, but now that I think about it, I think back on managers and directors that would be that for me. And I never
Yeah.
really, there was no name for it, right? It was just, oh, but, they're looking out for me, and that's
Mhm.
awesome. And I guess one thing, and thanks for bringing us back to this, because the mentorship, I think it's such a great concept, and it works when you know how to do it.
Mhm.
People ask others to be mentors. I've done this in the past too. Will you be my mentor? Sure. Well, that means that you have work to do. It's not the mentor's job to get you
Correct.
on calls and coach you on things. You need to think about what it is that you need advice on. You need to think about, where you are in your career
Mhm.
and how that person is truly going to help you. So it
Right.
can't just be anybody, right? You really have
Right.
to think about who this person is and how they're able to help you move along. And you're going
Mhm.
to outgrow people, and that's
Mhm.
okay. It
Right.
just means that you're growing.
Absolutely. So, that's just something that I would add to that reemerge piece is, personally and professionally, having like community, that like-minded people. And yeah, that's very, because being completely isolated isn't going to work. You need the support of others. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So what I would like to leave you with is, in the three podcasts, I did provide some real tactical type, like, things that you can do. Um, and I would encourage you can start doing those things immediately. And I encourage you to go through the three phases, and and start to really get that notebook or pull up that document on your computer and really start to think through all the things I talked about. Who are you? What's most important to you? What are your core values? What could be holding you back? What does your next chapter look like? How do you get that plan in place? It is life changing. There's no other way to say it. And that's words from countless clients that I don't even ask them to say those words. They say it to me, like, Julie, this has been life changing. So I encourage you to do it, because it's fun, and my goodness, you have this opportunity to do it, right? Again, it's so beautiful to get off autopilot, provide yourself this time and energy and effort to work on you and what you want your next chapter to look like.
It is beautiful, it is positive,
Hmm.
and it is free.
Yeah, yeah,
So don't let anything hold you back. Go for it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Julie, thank you so, so much. This is really enlightening. I just love talking with you.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure. And I'm so excited to speak to your community because you're my people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once a nurse, always a nurse. Once an
Absolutely.
informaticist, always an informaticist,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Exactly.
Right. Thanks so much, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you'll join us again for another session of Informatically Speaking.
This has been a production of the Greater Delaware Valley chapter of the American Nursing Informatics Association. For more information about the GDV-ANIA chapter, visit us at community.ania.org/Greater Delaware Valley/home.